Well, let's look at certain analogies in history. All right. So, Sparta. Sparta is one of the most famous military societies in world history. Sparta is a city-state in ancient Greece. And you may have heard of Sparta. A movie about Sparta was made called 300. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the movie 300. But 300 is really about 300 Spartan soldiers who are fighting millions, not millions, but hundreds of thousands of Persian soldiers. Persia is invading mainland Greece. They fight at a place called Thermopylae, the Battle of Thermopylae. And this is the pass into mainland Greece. The Greeks have to hold this position if they are to prevent the invasion. Okay? 300 Spartan soldiers, backed by thousands of other Greek soldiers, make a last stand in this pass. They are overwhelmed by the Persian invasion, and rather than run, like most people, the 300 soldiers make a final stand. Their leader is Leonidas, and he tells them, we will fight to the death. They all fight to the death, and they're all massacred. And the Persians take Leonidas' head, cut it off, and put it on a pike to warn the Greeks, we are merciless. Eventually, the Greeks, inspired by the sacrifice of Leonidas, they will repel the invasion and destroy the invaders. So how do we get this culture? Okay? Well, the education system of the Spartans is really interesting. It's really disturbing, actually. So young boys at age 5 and 6, they're taken away from their homes. And they are put in a school run by older boys. Okay, so the older boys are maybe like 10, 11. And so what happens, as you can imagine, is the older boys beat the crap out of the younger boys. Okay? From day one, there's no education. They're not learning anything. All that's happening is the older boys are just beating the crap out of the younger boys. But because this is happening, we call this like hazing, okay? And this happens actually a lot among fraternities and sports teams. When they're getting the crap beaten out of them, it builds solidarity. It builds brotherhood. So these young boys who are 5 and 6, they learn to love each other because only by helping each other can they survive the brutality. Okay? Then what happens is when they become 11, 12, 13, when they hit puberty, this is really interesting, they become mentored. Okay? Mentored by an older soldier, an older Spartan soldier who's maybe 28, 29, 30. But he has a family. They become lovers. They have sex with each other. And this builds group solidarity. Okay, so during hazing phase, these young boys learn to trust each other. They learn how to bond with each other. During the mentorship phase, these young boys learn to think like in a hive mind, okay? They learn to be part of a larger group. Then when they turn 18, they graduate, okay? And in order to graduate, what they do is this. They have a mission. So the Spartans have slaves called helots, okay? These are just people that they've conquered and who are now worked as slaves in the fields for them, okay? They're like serfs. So there are lots of rules governing the helots. An important rule is curfew. So if it's dark at night, you cannot be outside the house. If you are outside the house at night, you could be executed, okay? So as a graduation mission, these young soldiers hide in the fields at night, okay? They hide in the fields, and they wait for the sun to go down, so it's now dark. And they look for helots to come back because they're late. And what they'll do is they'll sneak up behind the helots and cut their throats. Okay, this is basically sacrifice. Okay, human sacrifice. So the Spartans did this as well. It's a very common thing. And what this does is it builds group cohesion, leading to synchronicity. There are thousands of city-states in Greece. Only Sparta did this. And it made everyone think Sparta was disgusting. Everyone hated Sparta. but it kept Sparta unified. And it made Sparta into the dominant military power in Greece at that time. Okay? What happened then is Thebes, another city-state in Greece, they would copy the Spartan system, okay? But they made it voluntary. So in Sparta, you have to be an elite to be part of the system. But in Thebes, anyone could join the system, okay? And they call the system the Sacred Band. Of 300 soldiers. And they were, again, lovers, okay? But this is really important for you guys to understand. At this time in history, there's no concept of homosexuality. It was perfectly permissible. No one cared if you had sex with men or animals or whatever, okay? It was not a big deal. This comes much later in modern times. Back then, homosexuality was not considered a concept. Okay, if you're out in the field, if you're out at war for like years and years and there's no woman around, you're gonna have sex with other men. It's a very natural thing to do. Okay, it doesn't mean you're homosexual, okay? So the Sacred Band of Thebes became the dominant military power after Sparta. Okay, it's called the Sacred Band. And they were like the vanguard, they were the spearhead. They would be the first in battle. And they were so ferocious that their enemies would run away. Okay? Then what happened is that Macedonia would copy the Theban system. Who's the most famous Macedonian in the world? Do you guys know? Which Macedonian is the most famous ever in human history? You know the name, but you may not know he's Macedonian. Alexander the Great, okay? His father is Philip II. Philip II is the one who actually built the greatest army in the world, the Macedonian army. And it was Alexander the Great, his son, who would take this army and conquer Persia. Okay, we'll learn this later on. But Philip II learned all this from Thebes. And at first, Macedonia and Thebes were allies, but Philip II was very ambitious. So then he wanted to conquer all of mainland Greece. And in 338 BCE, at the Battle of Trachonia, Macedonia fought against the combined might of Thebes and Athens. And Macedonia destroyed Thebes and Athens, okay? Because Macedonia basically copied the system from Sparta and Thebes. At this point, Macedonia should have destroyed the entire Theban and Athenian army. But when all was lost, the Sacred Band, they stood in the middle of the field. And they blocked the advance of the Macedonian charge so that everyone could escape back into the cities. They did not fear death. They welcomed death. Okay? For them, what mattered was honor and sacrifice. And that's how you create the greatest army in the world. Okay? Does that make sense? So these historical analogies give credence to our thought experiment.